All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our first Teal live resume review. Not sure how many people are in yet right now. So I'm going to give it a minute. I'll kind of do a little bit of a prolonged intro here as folks start to trickle in. But really the goal here is to be present and answer any questions and be as helpful as we can. And luckily, we've had a few folks volunteer their resumes. We've anonymized them or redacted their information. But we will use live, real examples of how to update resumes. On different resumes, I may just focus on the template. I may just focus on the achievements and the content, and I may do both. We've got a really great range of different occupations. And we are going to cover a lot. I've got 15 resumes. I'm not sure I'll get through all of them in this session, but if folks like this, we'll do it again. We want to be here to be helpful, and the goal is not to gatekeep any of this stuff. We want everyone to know everything they need to know to present their best self and land an awesome job. So please engage in the comments. We've got Leah on LinkedIn fielding answers and questions. I'll try to engage. She may relay them to me through our internal Slack. But I can't jump into LinkedIn and do this at the same time. I'm going to try, but please, this is really about answering your questions. So with that, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. And here is our first resume. Let's switch me over to this style so you can see a little bit more of that screen. So, all right. So real quick, who I am. I'm Dave Fano, founder and CEO at Teal. Why am I qualified to review resumes? I have been a part of hiring thousands of people at a startup level, consulting business level. I was an executive at WeWork, grew big teams. So I have hired a lot. I have been part of hiring processes. And that's kind of the lens I bring. It's like, what would I be looking for as a person who has hired many, many people? And now I've been building Teal for the last almost 3 years and have helped thousands of people build their resumes, better present themselves. So I've kind of understood both sides of the market. All right, so that's who I am, and let's dive in. So I'm going to try switching my nifty cameras here. So now I'm diving into this resume. Okay, let's real quick, before we jump into anything in particular, let's just kind of look above the fold, right? I look at the first half of the page. What do I see? If I was a recruiter, I'm skimming. I think there's a few things to think about in the mindset of a recruiter or a hiring manager is they do an initial skim. Doesn't mean all resumes are read for 6 seconds or 7.6 seconds, which is the stat you hear out there, which came from a study a few years ago. But people do skim first to decide if they want to read more. And so I think about it in stages. Is if the first third or first half, basically this thing that's maximized above the screen, isn't good, I'm not going to read all of page 1. And then if all of page 1 is not good, I'm not going to read page 2. So that's kind of what I look at first. What's going on above the fold. And then another thing I'll do is I'll do just kind of like overall, let's look at the usage, right? And so what I'm seeing here is a whole lot of white space, and then we'll see some that just look like solid walls of text. But already I'm kind of saying like, this is feeling like there could be other information here. It's 3 pages. So there's a couple things there that I'm already a little bit struggling with. So now let's get a little more detailed. Okay, so right off the bat, contact information in the top right. Again, some of these things may be nitpicky, but I just kind of want to tell you my thought process. If this is an English sort of Western country that sort of reads left to right in English, having it over here on the top right sort of like makes me go over there, then makes me cut back. Let's just sort of follow the patterns of what people do when they read. So that's one thing I would change. Maybe center it again. That these aren't going to get you hired, not hired, get you called in for an interview or not. They're just like little things that I think like add up as you sort of fill a person's bucket with reasons to not go forward. Next here is an objective statement. I'll just go ahead and join the bandwagon here. I don't think an objective statement is useful information to include on a resume, right? The objective is clear. You want a job. You don't need to say that. You're applying. All those things are clear in the actions you're taking. So I don't think that is helpful. Now let's look at this exact text: to secure a permanent long-term employment within those that's kind of what everyone wants. So I would not necessarily put that. What you can do, which I'm a big fan of, is a professional summary. In this particular case, let's hold off on that because there'll be others where I talk about a professional summary. And another thing that I think really goes well in the top third of the page is a target title, which we'll talk about some examples of that. But let's go a little further down here. And I'm just kind of ignoring the graphics. I don't think generally these things are helpful, like the blue wave. They could get chopped up in the ATS, but I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other, but I would generally recommend against it. Okay, skill summary. So this just kind of looks like a whole, just like mountain of text. And I think you want to be a little bit more deliberate with this. And a lot of the feedback I'm giving is resumes in general. I really think you want to look at a resume in the context of a job you're applying to. So in the absence of that, I'm just giving kind of general advice. Some people like a skill summary at the top. Some people don't. I think you got to pick one. Either it be a professional summary, career highlights, or block of skills. I don't think you should put all of them because the intention of all of them is the same, to give you a quick snapshot, a kind of pitch that gets you hooked to keep reading the rest. So pick one and which one works for you. In this case, I also think there's a lot of wasted space. If I was going to go with this route, I might do like 2 columns. Columns start to get tricky when it comes to ATSs, so I would be careful with that, and how they, not that a bot is going to pick you, but how it parses so that eventually it can be searched. I would be mindful of that. Now here, I'm just kind of like, it just feels like I'm putting a whole bunch of things on here. And I see this on resumes a lot. It's like, let me just cast the widest net with everything I know and hope that someone sees a word in there that catches their eye, and that's why they're going to pull me in. The truth is, it doesn't work that way. I want to sort of, as I'm reading, I want to continually build my confidence on why you're a right fit. So it's not like, oh, this one's a yes, this one's a yes, that one's a no. Doesn't really work like that. That's not how people think about evaluating resumes. I want to increasingly build my confidence on why I should bring you in. So now, I'm seeing a lot of different things. I'm seeing market research, business development, project and lead generation, budgeting, forecasting. Okay, Microsoft Excel, G Suite, CRM. So I'm getting a sense that it's like sales and marketing, but I'm needing to like piece all that together. It's already making me do a lot of work. So I don't like that. That's where I think maybe even a target title might help. Director of product marketing, senior communication specialist, even communications plans. It's like, it's a lot, even though it's all in like marketing and growth, let's call it. It feels like a lot. All right, now let's jump into work experience. Okay, personally, I like the company first, so I'm a fan of that. Then position. I don't know what this is. Maybe that's the type that's both a position. Then date range. Then a bunch of responsibilities and performance metrics. So this is taking a lot of space for which should just be more condensed. And I'm also just seeing a lot of different like visual devices. I have this arrow bullet. I have this like hollowed out bullet. So I think there's just a lot of things going on, and it's making me work hard. Let's think about now the content itself. Manage 300 plus opportunities in Salesforce. Okay, I kind of like where that's going. Support 8 Google sales reps. Okay. Engage with all business models, lead gen. Okay. So what we're seeing here is a pattern of descriptive text, right? This is like describing what I did, and it's not really telling me the outcomes. And there's a little bit of outcomes here, 80 to 150 outreaches a day. So let's bring those together, right? Because now as a reader, you're asking me to put those together. I just don't have the time for that. I don't have the energy for that. And someone else is. So I'm going to go with that person. So how about, achieved 80 to 150 outreaches activities a day and 15 client meetings by managing a team of 8 sales reps, right? So give me the outcome first, like what was the impact, what happened, and then how did I do it, right? And you could do that for all of these. So I would condense this into 3 to 5 bullets. The other thing you got to think about with your resume is people skim, but they also skim in sections, right? They don't just do like a skim at the beginning. They might be, okay, cool. First, think about when you read a book and the paragraphs in a book, you might read the first sentence, then you go to the next paragraph, first sentence, next paragraph. So what someone's going to do here is they're going to go, okay, next. They're going to go like 1, 2, 3, next. Okay, 1, 2, 3, next. So make sure that in every block of text, the first 1 to 2 lines are the best. I see it consistently, and we'll bring this up again because it's a recurring theme, is that people don't think about the order of the achievements. They're just like, oh, it's just a block. It doesn't matter which order they're in. And that's not true. It really matters the order in which things are in. So now let's go a little further on to the next job. So now we're on to page 2. I'm not sure if this page 1 would have gotten me to page 2. Okay, so now same format. Here, we're not using like text. So I also think be consistent. Don't, again, give me too many different things. So here I'm giving a description in text, and now here I'm using bullets. I think commit. If you want to go narrative style with a paragraph, that's fine. Just do that. Don't do that and bullets. There'll be some examples where you'll see where someone describes the company. In cases, that's helpful. If it's like an obscure company, no one's ever heard of it. But there's companies that are publicly traded, Fortune 100, no one's ever heard of, and sometimes you just may need to give a little bit of insights. So that I think can be helpful, but just repeating another version of what could be in a bullet, I don't think is generally a good practice. Let's go here. Okay, great. So now here we're doing bullets. We don't have this like metric thing here. They're in inconsistent. So I think this is one of the better ones. Initiated and executed 10 fundraising events utilizing a team of 450 volunteers. This is a wonderful achievement. This is really good. And so I think that in this resume, I'd want to see a push for quality over quantity, right? They don't need to have so many achievements. Get us to 3, but get them all to this level of quality, right? And if I like going back to the idea of order, okay, I'm skimming, I'm reading the first one. All right, not sold, going, plan, initiate, and executed all funding events, including volunteer management. Okay, this is just so much more impactful. Let's put that one first, right? That's a really wonderful achievement. So think about the order of achievements. All right, so I think, these things are going to kind of be the same. Let's talk about some of the other sections. Education, certification, these are great. Condense it, don't have it be too long. Certifications here maybe could even be comma separated. Community activities is nice. Awards are nice. But we're at a 3-page resume. Honestly, I might not have gotten to the 3rd page on this one. So that's the first one. Let me take a quick look at any questions we've got. Okay, great. Lots of thanks and appreciation, which I always appreciate. So this was more for a marketing position. Honestly, it was a little unclear. I see digital marketing consultant, community liaison, territory sales manager. I really think that this resume would benefit from a professional summary instead of an objective. I'd move all these skills to the bottom, and there's some really good work experience with some really good metrics. I'd put those at the top. I would just kick it off with experience. Let's see. This person started working in 2013. Right, this is close to 10 years of experience. So I would just say experienced marketing leader, sales leader, depending on what you're applying to, with over 10 years of experience, having led B2C, B2B, and familiar with performance marketing and driving organizations with some aggregate metrics, having driven over 5,000 leads to the various companies I've worked at. That's like a great punchy opening sentence. And then I would put a target title, which I'll show some examples of. All right. So we'll end on this one. Thanks to the person who submitted it. If they're online, we're trying to keep it anonymous here. Okie dokie. So now this is a resume for a UX designer. So let me switch over to this one for a sec. So we're going to see a lot of different styles of resumes for different positions, and you might do different things, and some of these templates start to look familiar. So this one is for a UX designer. And I'll talk about my high level observations and some of the things I've seen. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Okay, so this position, this person had all their contact information in the top left, which I think was great. Immediately, I'm identifying it. It's a 2-column resume. I can talk about that in a little separately, but let's just kind of look at the overall sections. I like about me. I'm gonna okay. I'd like to see some impact here. Right? I get a little bit of the about me, but like how many projects? Again, if it's not going to be punchy, just describing who you are, I don't think necessarily is like that accretive to the reading experience. I really like a professional summary or a statement or about me when you are leveraging the opportunity to talk about your career in aggregate. And you'll hear me say that over and over and over again because your work experience is really about what you did in each position. And there's nowhere else on your resume where you can talk about your career in aggregate. How many total projects have you done? How many total people have you managed? How much total revenue have you driven? It's just a really powerful way to get kind of like big, impactful numbers in one place. And I really like that as an opportunity to make a pitch. Here, you're getting a target title, which I really like. I like a target title for a lot of different reasons. I like it because, right, if we look here, product designer isn't a position they've had. So now, if this is in an ATS and a recruiter or someone searches within their database product designer resumes, well, now that text is on this resume and it will show up. Again, it's not a bot that's like looking for product designers. It's about being, it's really kind of unintelligent. It's like very explicit text search. So this was an opportunity for me to get those terms on there. And a lot of times people will search based on the title of the role that's open. So that's why I really, really love target titles. That's my reason. Okay, so contact info, that was good. Education, software skills, languages. Generally, these graphics I don't think are a best practice. I think from just like highlighting the text and some of the things I was trying to do earlier, this resume was done in a graphic software like Illustrator or Figma or something like that. I don't know for sure. I can test that. But what I am realizing is it's, obviously it's clear it's 2-column. And I think you have to be very conscious about doing a 2-column resume. And then if you do, what software you do it in. Again, it's not about the AIs and it's not about the bots, but I think parsability, I've got a YouTube video on parsability and on how much that matters. We can link to it in the comments. But eventually, if you want to be found when someone is searching the database, parsability is important. And these softwares that do the parsing look at the content on the page and they kind of try to guess what is what. Because resumes are unstructured data, even though in our mind we think they're structured, right? There's a title, there's an about me, there's experience. It's not a database. This isn't, a like a CSV file. So the computer has to guess and identify what these are. And when you make it 2-column, it makes it that much harder for it to guess. Because is product design kind of part of this or not? Like our eyes can do it, but the computer really struggles with some of those things. So that's a big reason I shy away from a 2-column. It's not a deal breaker on parsability, but if you do go 2-column, keep it very, very simple to maximize parsability. So that's kind of my 2 cents on columns, and then graphics, get rid of those. This is a design position, so there may be even a little more criticality of the visual aspects of the resume, but I've seen it time and time again. Even hiring managers for UX and design positions, they're less worried about like the box that the product came in. They just want the good stuff inside. So don't overthink it. Don't over design your resume. Now, and this is pretty minimal. I wouldn't call this over designed at all. But let's look at the positions now. So we've got the title, the company, title, company, title, company, title, company, title, company. Okay. So one thing I'm seeing is this kind of mixed usage of sort of a descriptive text and then a bullet. Descriptive text and bullet. And I think you want to be consistent. Pick one or the other. I don't think there's a good reason to have both. This person pulled off a pivot and is probably in the process of a pivot, right? Because these are freelance. These are both happening at the same time. This was a little while ago. So there's a couple things that come to mind here on resumes. So I'm noticing that there's no months on the years. And so you got to think about the people that do this for a living that are consistently looking at resumes. They have like a sixth sense for all these things. They're looking for reasons to say no. You got to remember that. And it's not about being mean or not personal, but they have lots of good candidates. And so they really need to whittle down to resumes that are a good fit. And so as soon as what I've heard from recruiters is when they don't see months, again, it's not like an automatic knockout, but it's like, what are they trying to hide? Now it's like, was this person there from December 2021 to January 2022? Could be. You didn't tell me. So you've and people are going to not assume the best just because they have to. It's a kind of risk management process at its core. So unless there's something you're trying to avoid, I think put the months. I just think it's generally a good thing. Less to hide, more transparent. It's good. They're down here. Why not up here? Like, stay consistent. Like there's a slight color change in the text, which is nice, but again, like, don't make me even think about those things. This is like a light gray. This is black, like a dark gray. So keep it simple, really, really simple, right? If I just think about also now to talk graphics for a second, let's just think about all the different styles of text we have on here. We've got a capital case, and I hid the name that was like big. We've got capital case bold. We've got a larger like title case font. We were using that same kind of here. Then we've got a light gray, a dark gray. We've got graphics. It's just a lot. Keep it really simple. I would say, like, give yourself a maximum of 3 if you really want to get sort of fancy with it. Colors generally fine. The ATSs don't have an issue with it, but again, just keep it really easy. People want to focus on the content. Looking at the achievements here, again, here a professional summary could be helpful. This one I think could paint a better picture or story for why you're transitioning from being an architect to being a UX designer. What this one could benefit from some accolades for these firms. Like, I know LMN Architects as having been an architect, and they were a client of mine in my past consulting business. They're a really reputable Seattle-based firm that have done some incredible projects. But if I was going to go work like as a startup as a UX designer, they may not know that. So that might be something you want to do that you could benefit from to sort of help someone understand how prestigious it is to work at a company like this. And same maybe for the others. I wouldn't waste too much space on it. So that's the work experience. And I like work experience right up at the top. I'm a big fan. Case studies or projects. Having a project section, especially as a career pivoter, I think is a good thing. And then skills. I think I love a skills section with the hard skills. This is all really good. So I think those are generally a good thing. Structurally, again, like I said, I'd be weary of a 2-column. Education looks good. Yeah, that's the feedback I would give here. I don't think an ATS would spit this resume out in terms of parsability. I think it'd be fine. Just a few things I would do to change this up and maybe build a little bit better narrative on the pivoting. All right, so let me just come in here when switching industries. Okay, so there's a question on transferable skills. The thing about transferable skills is you need to know what they transfer into. So you need to do that work. So in this particular case, again, these are 2 fields I know fairly well, so I could talk about it. As a architect and someone who studied architecture, who has a degree in architecture, you learn certain things. You learn things about composition, you learn about design, you learn about form. Maybe you even did like stakeholder interviews that you learned about, and you might have done that in practice. That's going to be called like user testing in UX. And so you need to do the translation of the transferable skills because the person on the hiring side can't do that for you. And you're kind of like leaving it to chance if you don't. So that's what I would say around transferable skills is adapt your language. Even in the past jobs, like, go ahead and just change it to the language of the destination rather than the language of where you're coming from, because you don't want to be there anymore. right, hopefully that answers the question there. Okay. All right. So going over to the next resume. This one, the person who sent it went ahead and changed all the names. So I left it because they already sort of anonymized it. And whenever we can do that, we will. I try to do that myself, but don't have the time to edit all the PDFs sometimes. So this is for a software engineer. And we're looking at a 1-column resume. This one is pretty good. So if we fit the page here, if I zoom out all the way, there's like a nice usage of the page. It's crisp and clean. The bolding is leading my eye on like what I need to go to. They're putting skills and the bio at the top. I think it's okay. You've got a lot of wasted space here. So if we now go back over to our fit with, right above the fold, I'm a recruiter. I just opened up this resume. It's like, okay, there's kind of a lot of wasted space, but I think it's okay. So name, target title. This is what I'm looking to achieve. City, state, great. Phone number, email, GitHub, a website. That's, if you're a software developer, that's valuable. And then for LinkedIn. And you'll see this come up, but it's a little tricky to talk about it because I have to anonymize it. But some will see that someone puts a live link to a LinkedIn. And I don't think that's great because if for some reason it becomes a dead link, now I don't know how to get to your LinkedIn. I think what's implied here is that this would have been their actual LinkedIn URL, which I think this is the right way. I think it's totally fine for it to be a live link, but if for some reason the link stops working, now you can't find me. You got to search for me. There's lots of John Does. You're not going to find me on LinkedIn, which I think would be a bummer. All right. Software developer seeking employment. Okay, so here's what I'm seeking. I think that's less relevant. Known as a friendly, analytical, problem-solving professional, and the ability to adapt to new technologies, 5+ years working experience directly with customer service, and 10 years experience in a fast-paced team environment. I think these are interesting. I think the rest is kind of unnecessary. Like, let the work speak for itself. This person's pivoting because then the next thing I see is like projects. And so this is probably someone who went to a boot camp of some sort and is transitioning from customer service customer service into being a software developer, which I think is okay. I think a professional summary right here is a great place to build that narrative. Again, why I really like professional summaries. I feel like it's 50-50 split. Some people will tell you it's a waste of space. Just cut straight to the point and go straight to the work experience. I think it's helpful. All right, skills. I think as a software engineer, hard skills are important, especially as someone who's pivoting. So to say like, these are the softwares I know, I think that's pretty good. I think taking 3 lines is kind of unnecessary. And I also, something I see a lot of people do is put like proficiency in a resume. I don't think you have to put that on a resume. I think you can address that once you get into the interview. But what does proficient, knowledgeable, familiar mean? Obviously, familiar is the least, but knowledgeable could be I know it well. So I'm not a fan of level of proficiency on the resume. I've seen people do it with like little bar charts, graphics. I don't think you need that. It's more for the reader to think about. Just put them all on there. I think that's okay. They're gonna talk to you about it in the interview anyway, and sort of how you gauge yourself as proficient relative to someone else. There's a lot of interpretation there. So I don't think folks are doing themselves a favor by including that generally. And it takes a lot of space. Okay, project. So this is the first time we see a project section. There's lots of different sections that can be included in a resume. I think the core ones are work experience, education, skills, summary and contact info. And then you have all these others: volunteering, projects, publications, awards, and use those as needed. As a pivoter, I think a project section can be quite helpful, because you can you can sort of have a written portfolio in a way right within your work. And because if you're a pivoter, you don't have that, and people want to hire you for kind of what you've done. If you don't have that experience, it's a great way to highlight it. So I think this is a good use of a project section. Let's see, a little bit of description of what it was. Again, I think that's fine. I think this line, when you're describing what it was, assuming the person doesn't know, is not a bad thing. To reiterate or communicate what could have been a bullet, I would not do that. So that's something to be wary of. Okay, so now let's look at some of this content. Full stack project that includes gallery and information, storefront product, technologies used. Okay. I think there's a way to talk about this. It's just kind of descriptive. I think that here you could talk about, did you get some users? Did it launch live? Did you do it fast? What are some things that give me a glimpse into what it's like to work with you? Um, Lines of code over time. People may not be interested in that. That may not be the right indicator. Might look kind of like a rookie thing to say. But some of this is just sort of assumed. Technologies used. Yeah. This is good. It talks about like teamwork. So I tried to put a little bit more oomph into the projects and maybe talk about the outcomes when you launched it. Did you get users to use it? Another thing you could do is like link to it live if it's live. That would be good because I think people want to see those in a portfolio. Now, experience. Okay. Okay. Self-motivated. This is cool. This is a great way to talk about taking initiative and doing that. Obviously, there's a like narrative around a pivot, which I think is good. And I think like showing that you did this like in an analytical way. This is now where the metrics, our eyes go to the numbers, but even more important is that you can communicate in a way that conveys business impact. So it's like the numbers are one thing, but the fact that you can use numbers or you did use numbers to talk about your successes, I think is a really good thing. So that's a big thing to do here. Uh, okay, how many issues? If you can, multi-million-dollar production line. I would try to put in a number if you can of $5+ million production line, $100 million, multi-million feels like a missed opportunity. Here's the thing talking about the transferable skills, right? Plant technicians. That's, especially since you're transitioning out of that and you don't want to do this, could you use something that's a little more general that someone could get? Obviously, you're working in a plant, but I'm imagining like a facility, an industrial facility, but I don't know that for sure. So could you sort of like normalize the language for me so it's easier for me to understand? These feel like they assume like I know where this was coming from. There's also something now, I don't know where this was written, but there's something a little funky happening where these things are wrapping under the bullets, which is not normal, which is making me think this was not done in a document editing software. This was done like in Canva or something like that. Okay. Right. And then education, certificate in web development, coding bootcamp company, right? This is being anonymized. That's right. I would maybe put education above projects in this case. I think education for someone who is, recently pulling off a pivot or just getting out of school, it makes a little more sense for education to be at the top. But that's kind of the feedback I would have here. Overall, I love that it's a single column, easy to read. My eyes go to the right places, just like some slight changes I could make. Alrighty, let me switch back over. Let me look back over here at the comments. I'll just look at what the summaries that Leah sent me real quick here. Make sure I address anything. Okay. Okay, so this was from before. Do columns of skills in the ATS get kicked out? No. Skills, it's generally like searching a database it has of skills, so it kind of is just dependent on the skills that it uses for its database. Should you have a separate resume for different titles within an industry, as businesses have job titles all over the place? Look, I am a huge proponent of customizing your resume. I say that knowing that it takes time and energy. And so a lot of people will tell you not to waste your time because the efficacy is not there. It's frankly why we're building the Teal resume builder the way that we are, because we understand that takes a lot of time, but it betters your chances. So it's a trade-off. How much time do you have? There's a great post this week on LinkedIn around, the time saved by not doing it lets you apply to 3 times as many jobs. So on a net basis, you're still getting more interviews. I think that makes a ton of sense. But I would probably guess that those were very similar jobs that were being applied to. So I also think it depends on like the breadth of difference of the jobs you're applying to. I think if you're just gonna maybe just customize the target title and that's it, you know, but I think at the very least, if you're someone who's exploring a few different sort of jobs like product marketing, product management, marketing operations, I at least would maybe have like 3 profile resumes, I've heard them called. Again, my preference is if you can, if you have the time, customize it at least a little bit to address the job description. Yeah, as an example, someone sent me 2 JDs today that they were using the same resume for. One was a product manager at a crypto company, and the other one was at Kraken, a crypto company, and the other one was at Figma, a design software. In one, I would really highlight my crypto experience, and for Figma, probably not relevant. So I would change those. You're wasting a lot of screen space. Like the way I think about it is you got 100 units of reader attention. Do you want to waste any of those units of attention on something that just doesn't build a better case for you to work there? Right. So this recruiter at Figma saying like, oh yeah, cool. The blockchain, Ethereum, that's all. That's like, I read it. You wasted my sort of energy calories on reading that, but it's just like not relevant to what I'm doing at all. Okay, cool. On next, where you could have used that text on the page to build a better case for it. Okay, next question. Do you think every role I've had since college listed is necessary, or is it just about telling the most relevant story? Um, Look, I don't think a resume needs to be everything you've ever done. The truth is, most people are going to look at your last 2 roles because that's the freshest in your mind of what you did. If it was a job you had 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, are you even like, are those techniques even still the same? The one area where I'd maybe not agree with myself there is if it was domain knowledge. If there was something about that experience that built my domain knowledge and the fact that I lived that makes a better case for why you should hire me, then yes. Otherwise, I would just not include it. Right. Again, going back to this idea of like reader energy units, don't waste them on that. Use them on things that make a better case for why you should work there. If you want, you can just put them as like listed companies, but I wouldn't go through the trouble of writing bullets, writing achievements, all that kind of stuff. Is it okay to use hyperlinks in your work within the bullets? Sure. I think it's fine. It's again, make sure that it's the actual thing is there in case the link breaks. But I think hyperlinks are absolutely fine. Can you say more about building narrative for pivot in a resume? Space is limited. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the professional summary is the place to do it, right? And I think a lot, I see a lot of people, especially pivoters, get angry at the resume. It's like, oh, but I'm such a there's so much more to me than the text that can go on this page. And that's of course true, but part of just making a case for yourself as a professional in the working world is that you can make a case in writing for why someone should hire you. So I think conveying passion, interest, excitement about the company, and show some of like the initiative you're taking and why you're so excited about this new career path you're taking. I think you can do that in a professional summary. Also, another tool you have in your tool chest is a cover letter. Right? I think for pivoters, cover letters may make a little more sense, or that could be in the body of an email or in the application itself. But I think building the connection for how what you did has led to what you are going to do, and if there's anything that's transferable and why you are a good candidate for this position. In this case, if you were an Uber driver for 5 years and you're applying for a junior software engineering role at Uber, that's cool. It's like, I understand this product. I love this product. It changed my life. And now I want to help build it and deploy it and bring this kind of empathy to the user. I think that makes a strong case. They may not always be there, but I think trying to build those bridges for the reader is what you really want to do when building that narrative. Okay. Someone's asking if we'll do these again. If you guys like them, we'll do them again. And we can cover any topics where, we're thinking about doing these series on an ongoing basis. So Yeah, that's the goal. If you want them, we'll do them. That's the yeah. But if it's just end up me here by myself, that's boring. All right, so let's go to the next one. We have another software engineering one. So let me go into my zoom in view here. Okay, so single column. We'll just kind of do a quick skim. This one really has like no styling whatsoever, which I think is kind of okay. Contact info was fine, but now let's look at this introduction. I'm a self-motivated full stack developer who is looking to gain experience. I don't know, man. Again, right here, gain experience. I'm not really. I don't want to hire people who are looking to gain experience. I want that. I mean, I hope you are, but I don't need to know that, right? I want you to help make us better. But even still, this just feels like an objective with multiple like everyone should want this. You don't need to say it. It's kind of assumed. I'm passionate, enthusiastic, hardworking. Again, these kind of like filler, soft skill words for meeting deadlines. And prove this to me. Tell it to me in your achievements. Yeah, so I would get rid of all this. Yeah. Again, you already talked about professional summary, so I'm not going to rehash that. But I don't think this is adding. And so now, again, this 100 units of reading energy, you just burned 30 of them. I'm like, oh, okay, we're sort of digging ourselves out here. Skills and attributes, tech expert with proficiency, and okay. Some of these are kind of, prove this to me in the resume. Yeah, prove these. Like again, just these lists of words and skills and attributes. Like this is where achievements on the job are the most powerful. Prove it. Prove it through achievement statements. Technical skills. This is redundant. I think if you've like put the same information, right? I'm even seeing some of the same words. It looks like you're like keyword stuffing. So already like the first half of the page is stuff that I'm kind of like, so I'm like down to like 60 units of reading energy gone. All right, I'd probably move on from here. Okay, now work experience. Freelance developer, develop responsive, very just kind of like descriptive text. No achievements, like no metrics of what you've accomplished. It also just like reads very flat. Like this resume, I think, is struggling with hierarchy, like visual hierarchy, and like what to read. This just like kind of capital case, but then this visual hierarchy, I think, is really important. Think about how you want to guide the eye. That's part of building your narrative. It's not just the text narrative. It's also like, how do you want people to jump from section to section? How are you being strategic about your breaks? All those things. References should not be included on a resume if someone wants them to ask you for them. It's just taking space. Education is good. This resume could absolutely be on one page. I don't think this should be on 2 pages. And I think there's a little bit more work to structure this one and rethinking that top section. All right. Let me check back in on our questions here. As someone looking for an entry-level job, do I need to list the projects I have worked on my portfolio, or should my portfolio handle that? Look, I think if you are in an occupation that a portfolio makes sense, then go with the portfolio. And then a lot of projects, a portfolio makes sense. Like I studied architecture, so it's obvious to have a portfolio. It's almost like a requirement. UX designer requirement. Marketing professional, social media manager, a little less obvious, but I think a portfolio of your work you can almost do for any occupation. Whether you accompany it or you have another way to do it, build a personal website. I think all of those go above and beyond and they're extra, and you got to kind of hope that people get there and you got to do the work to get them there. So an in-between is a projects section in your resume, but just describe them in the way that the person wants to learn about them, so they click the link to a portfolio or something, or how you have that hosted. But I don't think it can hurt. And then also, if you're not just like directly applying online and you're forwarding it to someone, or it's an intro through a reference, I think a portfolio then really starts to add a lot of value. Okay. Here we've got a different style of resume. It's a little more traditional in that we've got some blocking and some things and some elements that I've seen before. So let's go ahead and talk through it. So right above the fold, let's just talk to that. We had like, I think a name here, some contact info here. And so here's an example of just the LinkedIn with a live link. I'm not going to click it. But if say that link died, it became inactive, it got parsed out. Now I don't know how to get to this person's LinkedIn profile. So I would prefer a linkedin.com/in/your URL. That's it. You can try to keep it. You don't need the HTTP, www. You don't need all that. You can make it a live link, but just give me that LinkedIn ID so I know how to get to you in case this link stops working. I don't think this is adding anything. The graphic, I would get rid of that. I could get sort of munched up in the parser as well. All right, now we've got a professional summary. Licensed special education professional with experience adapting curriculum and environments for varied disabilities and needs. Okay, cool. Now seeking a diverse. Okay, again, this is clear in what I'm applying to. So I'm not seeing the connection between how these credentials qualify me for this. Right. And so I would try to make a case. This is your pitch at the end of the day for why someone should hire you. And so as this feels like someone who's pivoting from teaching into a more like corporate position and DEI work. So build that narrative here. Instead of professional summary, I would just put the target title that you're applying to. So you can kind of channel or project, this is me. This is me as a DEI specialist. And then here's why I'm that person. So I would tweak that. But now this is what I was talking about earlier, is you're starting to see like multiple of the techniques above the fold, right? So now we have this, okay, proven. It's like, why do I have this and this? Let's just pick one. I'm starting to see some of that credential here, a little bit of like name dropping, which I think is great. School, maybe some brands I worked with. And then you've got like the list of core competencies. I really think you want to maybe two at most. I really think do one. And then the fourth one that's not here would be like career highlights, which it looks a lot like core competencies, but maybe it's just a list of like bullets aligned to the left. I'd pick one or two. I think I've got like, this is like trying to tell a story through these various sections, but you're putting it on me as a reader to build that narrative. So just do it for me. Give me the narrative, get some of these keywords into the text. I've seen some people bold those sometimes. I think that's totally fine. It could feel like a little overt, but I actually think it's okay. And that could happen there. All right, now jumping into professional experience. And so some of these things start to break down with parsability. It's mostly a single column resume, but then when you have these columned bullets, if you've ever done this in Word, you have to put in a table element to do this, and sometimes tables, the parsers don't like tables. But this is the right visual way to do it because it takes way less space. Okay. So again, thinking about like visual spacing, we're already on 2 pages. So give this a little more breathing room, right? This is hard to read. Right? It's just like a wall of text. The indenting is hard. So I just think like visually, this is tricky to consume. But now let's actually look at, and then so there's a couple decisions here that, bolding the position versus the company. If I'm pivoting, maybe I want to prioritize visually the company or the organization over the role. I always like to prioritize the company first, but or at least make them equal. And more so a reason to use a target title, because then if you're pivoting, you don't have the title you're applying to anywhere on the page, which is going to make it a little tricky. So let's look at some of this content. Again, I think the first job or the most recent job on your resume should have 3 to 5 bullets max. This feels like a lot, but even here, my eye is going towards the numbers. Achieve consistent success. Okay, 95%, high performing educator. Let's get some of these better bullets at the top. All right, so let's just look at the first one. Trained and directed members of my team along with stakeholders and executives across various work sites. These don't feel like there's a deliberate order. It feels like I'm just going to list all the awesome things I did, and I'm assuming you're going to read them all, so it doesn't matter what order they're in. And we just don't read that way. So be deliberate about the order of your achievements. Again, think about the story you are telling. If I could only pick one achievement, which is the one I'd put first? If I could put two, then what's the second one I do? Be mindful of that, of how people read it, because we skim. Think about when you read, you skim. So first two, if I'm not sold, I'm just going to jump to the next one. Okay, now here, you don't need a header. So that revealed the person's name. So apologies for that. But you don't need a repeat header on resumes as well. So I would not do that. Header and footer is wasted space. You had it at the very beginning. They don't need to look for it over and over again. And then, yeah, we've got same stuff on achievements. Then education looks good. Honors and awards, additional information. These are all fine. If you're already on to 2 pages, if you were really trying to get this down to 1 page, I would think about taking some of that stuff off. All right. That's that one. This is 1 column. I think pretty straightforward. Kind of visually of quite a few things going on. Here we're like bolding and capitalizing the first letter. Also just feels like a lot of work to do that stuff. So I would try to kind of keep it simple if possible. Okay, let's go back to our questions here. Okay, I think I answered those already. All right, if you got questions, keep them coming. Let me come ahead and let me do a time check here. Oh, wow, we're over. Okay. All right, so I made it through 5. We'll probably stop there. We will chop this up into recordings and see if some of these made sense and publish them. Probably look for them on YouTube. But I like doing these. I like to be helpful. If you have feedback on other things you'd like us to see, if you'd like us to review your resume, you can see that we mostly anonymize them. I messed up on that. Or if you really want to make it easy, you could anonymize it for me, change your name, change your address, and just send me the resume. And then just let me know. So then it makes it really easy to do this. But if you want to see us do more of these, if you want to see us do other topics, resumes are easy because I can do them on my own. Another one that we're interested in doing is tell me about yourself, so people can rehearse and practice and other can learn from it. The big thing we're really trying to do here is not do these one-on-one, so it doesn't stay isolated and only one person's learning at a time. We want to increase our reach here. So, we will happily review yours, but we want others to be able to learn from it. So in the comments, Leah put the email address, just hello@tealhq.com. Send it over. Any feedback, comments, thoughts you have, let us know. And, and we do have the Teal resume builder that makes a lot of these things. We kind of don't let you follow bad practices. It's a very opinionated software in the sense that we want it to, automatically not just, you don't have to think about these things. The things that we know are bad practices have already kind of been taken out. There's some other restrictions that we're working through to sort of open it up a little bit with more things you can do, but we've kind of started very constrained with this idea that you have a career history and you can list everything you've ever done, everything you're absolutely proud of and the work you've done, but then you can just very quickly and easily only include on a resume what's relevant for that particular job. So if you've given that a shot, give us some feedback on how we can make it better for you. But thanks so much for tuning in to our live. We're also, we're fishing for names for it. We've tried like Teal Talks, Career Chats. Let us know. Always trying to make these fun and brand them. But thank you so much for joining. I hope you liked it. And I think we're going to try to do one again next week. It's kind of TBD. My wife's traveling. I got to watch the kids and pick them up from school. So we're going to try to squeeze it in. But I love doing these. So if you guys get value, please let us know. All right. Thanks again and see you all soon.